All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you, just like me. All right, before I get going on this one, um, kind of like a British version of Journey and Bon Jovi combined. Blood Red Saints came out last year. The album's called Undisputed. This was either my top album from last year or I don't know. It finished in the top five. I should have kept the list, but I just sort of wing it. You'll have to go back and watch the video, I guess. But um, really, just an amazing album. Great songs. Go check out one particular song. It's called "Breathe Again." This is just fantastic music. And again, I'm just kind of bummed out that it was here and nobody really noticed, and then it was gone, and nobody noticed it was gone. So I wanted to give it a plug, even though there's plenty of great music from 2022 that I just did a video about for last week, and you can check out that video. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're smacking that bell if you want notifications on new videos. And yes, you can join me over on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. Now, a disturbing article, which I think was published on maybe on the New York Times website, or it could have been in a couple of other places. But here's the title of the article: Will electric cars kill AM radio? Now, I have a ton of love for AM radio. I was a little kid, had my little red, white, and blue bicentennial transistor radio. I used to listen to WRKO in Boston, and they had this top three at 9. And basically, the top three was supposed to represent the top three songs for that particular day. So it was just a great idea because, at that moment in time, the song that was number one for that day may not be number one on the charts or anything for the week, but maybe because of phone calls, back in those days, there were no algorithms. You and I, we were the algorithms, and I used to clutch that little radio, and I would love to tune in stations from Rochester, New York, and sometimes I'd get Charlotte, was it North Carolina? I would get all of these different places all around the country, because the beauty of AM radio is the signal kind of bounces off the atmosphere and at nighttime travels really, really far. Sometimes it fades in and out, but it didn't bother me. It was like a science lab. It was like an experiment. I'm like, okay, what can I tune in tonight? And I would go way down the end of the dial and try to find some obscure station, and I would go back and forth. And then when I got bored doing that, I'd be listening to WRKO in Boston, and they were playing music in those days. Of course, later on, WRKO and all these former music stations would flip over to the talk radio format, and there's one man who's responsible for that, and his name is Rush Limbaugh, the late great Rush Limbaugh, who changed, the face of AM radio. And all of these stations were building their formats around Rush Limbaugh. They were starting, with Glenn Beck and all these other personalities, Sean Hannity. And it was a lifestyle for a lot of people. They would wake up in the morning, they'd listen to like Imus in the morning, then they'd hear Beck, then they hear Limbaugh, then they'd hear Hannity, and then maybe they hear like Mark Levin at night or some other personality. But that format, if it goes away, I think that's the beginning of the end in a lot of ways, because talk radio, whether you like the politics of it or not, and sometimes I don't agree with all the people I just listed. I mean, I was a big Limbaugh fan. He had a great radio voice. And again, he was one of the first people I heard on the radio with a different opinion than everybody else in media. And not only did he have a different opinion, but he was very entertaining. So to find out that AM radio may be going away, number one, it's not a shock because everything has become so app driven. So instead of getting a terrestrial radio signal, an analog signal from a transmitter, you're going to have some kind of digital signal coming in either via satellite or with an app, which essentially is bouncing off of a phone tower, a cell phone tower. You know, if you got your car hooked into this, which I don't know how to do any of that stuff because I still have a CD player in my car. I still have a cassette player in my car because my car is like a 2007, 2008, whatever. And they were still putting CD players in those cars. And there was an AUX input, which is pretty helpful because you can pretty much, line in anything you want. And you can even get a little Bluetooth adapter and plug it into the aux in and then plug it into your cigarette lighter thing. And that's what I do, if I want to listen to music from my phone. But, one of the reasons I do that stuff is because radio has become so boring and unimaginative. And I'm talking about the programming. The stuff on talk radio is still interesting for talk radio fans, people who say drive into work each morning and they want to get some real news. They don't want to get the news according to the people who are basically telling you what to do with your life and leaving out the parts that are valuable or are contrary to the narrative that they set up. And folks, you don't have to be political to understand this stuff. So anyway, this story is a bummer. Here's the heart of this. The AM band in particular is subject to electromagnetic interference from electric motors. So the electric car will be the reason. And it's funny because people who are pushing hard on electric cars, they'd be happy if talk radio went away. I know there'd still be an app, right? You'd have your show on an app, but it wouldn't be as accessible. And, as much as I liked listening to music on WRKO, there's no question that listening to music on an FM radio station like WBCN in those days, when I used to listen to rock stations, WCOZ, WBCN, WHJY, WAAF, and you have to be from New England to know what I'm talking about, I guess. Those signals were all just spectacular. And you need a good FM stereo station to get the most out of the music. AM is just one-dimensional. So talk was a perfect format for AM radio. And now they're kind of threatening to shut it down, do an end around, as car dealers are not going to put AM radios in cars that have these electric motors, which create static and noise. It says here, many EVs have abandoned the radio band, while others like the Ford F-150 did not or did include it, but will soon cease to. So if you have a Ford F-150, it will have it. A global radio aggregator and streaming service called TuneIn offers a solution by delivering feeds from some 100,000 stations over a vehicle's 5G wireless network access. So there you go. That's your cell phone tower now bouncing that signal into your car via an app like TuneIn. Of course, TuneIn has been around for quite some time. The question is broadcast radio an endangered species in the new generation of electric vehicles? The AM band in particular is subject to electrical interference, which is one reason the BMW i3 electric car declined to include it back in 2014. Tesla evidently gave up on terrestrial AM in the Model S circa 2018, and it's not available on current Teslas. Mercedes doesn't have a regular broadcast AM, and both Volvo and Audi have produced EVs without AM. The interference problem could get worse as EVs carry larger electric motors. For most of the last 100 years, in-car entertainment was provided if your car had a radio and a heater by one choice, the full array of AM broadcasting. In the 1960s, FM became an option. Then the long march through an add-on 8-track cassette, CD, and then phone-based music. Lately, broadcast radio is seeing a small single-digit dip in listenership, said Eric Rhodes, chairman of Streamline Publishing, which covers the industry through Radio Inc. Obviously, quite a lot of radio listening is done in the car today, but Rhodes said that hasn't stopped auto companies from predicting that AM and FM would eventually disappear from the auto dashboard. Radio's demise has been expected many times, but even today, 86% of respondents in a Jacobs Media survey said they listen to radio on any device at least an hour per day. Auto companies consider deep sixing radio for the same reason they ditched the CD player. It costs money and takes up space and resources on the valuable digital dashboard. So essentially, they just don't want to put FM or AM radio in a car at some point. The terrestrial radio access will be done through a 5G signals in most new cars. Now, I'm not going to get into all the conspiracy theories about 5G. There are plenty of them out there, and it's not fun. It's not fun to read about because there aren't a lot of people out there saying, yes, 5G is super safe and don't worry. There are a lot of people that are worried about 5G. We are being bombarded by signals all day long, whether it's a Bluetooth signal, a 5G signal, other kinds of electromagnetic stuff that's coming at us. Your computer screen is giving off stuff. It's just kind of sad, but their solution appears to be tune in. It says in an Auto Week interview, TuneIn CEO Rich Stearns said that the service includes 100,000 radio stations, as well as such oddities as the audio from Jeopardy and other television feeds. That's one way for TV sports junkies who aren't paying for the privilege can get their game coverage. Radio is still a vibrant medium, Stearns said. Now, my guess is, though, and I could be wrong here, they're not saying it, but if you're going to get radio broadcasts of football games from a tune-in radio station that's broadcasting the game, again, my guess is you're probably going to have to pay something for the tune-in premium service. Like you'll have to pay at least a few bucks a month, but maybe I'm wrong. Or, it might broadcast that station except for when they go to the football game because, again, like Tom Petty said, why should I pay for something that I used to get for free? That's why a lot of people, even though it's kind of a pain, you have to have it directional, they have HD television antennas that you can buy. And I know a lot of people who have them where I live because the stations are within 30 miles and they pick up 20, 30 TV stations for free. I mean, they're not paying for cable. They're not paying to stream it. They're just getting it over the air. In the old days, you had rabbit ears, and they forced everybody to go over to this digital format, which, I kind of miss the rabbit ears because on the digital format, it's kind of like an all or nothing signal. I mean, sometimes you get it where it'll break up and you can kind of deal with it. But typically, if it comes in, it's got to come in at 100% to not drive you crazy. And if it doesn't come in at 100%, then you're not going to receive it. Whereas in the old days, you could get like a fuzzy picture. You'd get snow, which you could hear the audio and the snow and the noise would be in there. But if you were really desperate to watch something, you'd watch it that way. We suffered through a lot of snowy TV pictures when I was living on the Cape, and all the stations in Boston were coming in like crap. And by the way, the signal would improve at night, much like the AM situation, but it would tend to work better at night than it would work uh, during the day. How much better, you know what I'm saying? So it would just be a good thing, because most of the time you're watching television, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. But yeah, I'm kind of an analog man, kind of like that Joe Walsh song. And it's becoming harder for me to remember passwords. It's becoming more difficult to pair different devices and to figure out, you buy something and then you have to enter in a code and then scan another code, and then like it'll sign you out of something that you didn't do yourself, and then you have to sign yourself back into it. And a lot of times you have to go to a website, and then you have to enter in a 4 or 5 digit number to restore it. It's becoming a big tangled web of stuff you have to remember and do. Whereas, turning on AM or FM radio is fairly simple and it's fun. I loved scanning the dial and seeing what was out there. And I still do it. I'll still get into the car and scan, hoping to find something different that I haven't heard, because everybody is basically, chicken. They're all afraid to program and do anything outside of the box, because it's all been corporatized, and there's no independence, there's no originality. So in any event, this could be the beginning of the end for radio broadcasting. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, at least over the air, how we, listen. Now, some people will say, Dave, this is great, though. If you want to listen to a station in Seattle, Washington, and you live in the state of Florida, you can get the Tune In app and listen to the. But this gives like no, I don't know. It doesn't delineate geography anymore. It doesn't. If you're like living in a certain part of the country and you want information and your news and your public service announcements from that area, you're gonna be wanting to get the app for that station that's down the road, which to me seems stupid, because in the old days, you don't need an app. You just listen. You got your antenna. And in some cases, if the station is close enough, you really don't need much of an antenna to pull that signal in. So this is all becoming very homogenized, where, okay, why would I want to listen to a station in Seattle if I live in Tampa? I don't want to. There's no, I mean, is there a novelty about it? Hey, I can find out what's going on in this town. Maybe for a half hour or so, but then, I want it customized for where I live. And I'm sure, much like these Roku apps and stuff, they'll drop in advertising. It's becoming very sophisticated where, it knows where you live, it knows your zip code, so it can kind of figure out what your tastes are, what advertising would work on you. It's so impersonal. And, I don't even want to start talking about the great DJs that I used to listen to. I mean, Dale Dorman in Boston, just an absolute legend. And I grew up listening to that guy and others, I mean, there were a ton of great radio personalities that inspired me, even though I couldn't hold a candle to any of them. It was just, kind of like something to shoot for and something to imitate. So all of that whole art of broadcasting and being creative and improvising and knowing what to say at the right moment, all that has been boiled down to pre-recording and having the computer time everything out for you and just drop the file in and you're good to go. And it probably does that for you now. So all you have to do is record a little spot, and then, even if you get it wrong, it can probably clean things up for you. It can do some editing, and I'm sure it doesn't take all that long to do. So Yeah, I'm just an old geezer here complaining about things that I can't control and watching as the stuff that I grew up with, the stuff that I thought would always be around. I mean, radio has been around for like 100 years, and it's just tragic to think that it might go away because hey, we can't put this technology in a Tesla. You're cheapening my car by putting an AM radio in it. If anything, they should have an AM radio in a Tesla that is shielded from all that noise and that can pull stations in from even further away. I mean, come on, we should have improvements. We shouldn't have, things that are going away because these people just think everybody is in love with pairing their Bluetooth and, downloading apps instead of just having the freedom to just scan that dial and listen to something that they want to hear. So I know a little bit long-winded and complaining a lot, but the end of AM or FM radio just is really a huge bummer. But I can see it happening, and there are going to be a lot of people that are going to get very nostalgic about the days of terrestrial radio. I guess you can turn off all of that electromagnetic interference, those transmitters, and convert them into cell towers. And I don't know, we all just move on and remember the good old days. And now we have an app for something that we used to just listen over the air to. All right, people, that's my video. One last little look here at Blood Red Saints. Bon Jovi and Journey combined. You could call it Bon Journey, but I think that might be a copyright violation. I think there was a band called Bon Journey, and they did covers. They did a tribute to both Journey and Bon Jovi. These guys are from the UK. I hope they're still together because this is a really good album. Came out last year. If you missed the boat on it, I'm just trying to get you up to speed in case you didn't see it the first time around. So again, thanks for watching, and I will see you pretty soon.